So I wanted to start a new show for the channel, one where I specifically talk about One Piece. I've been a fan of One Piece for 20 years, right? So for most of my life, most of my conscious life, it's been consumed by One Piece, all right? And so now that it's ending, I really want to spend a bit of time to talk more about it, because it's just like I people who haven't consumed One Piece, they're like, ah man, why do people love this stuff? Why are people so committed? Why are people like able to like watch something that's like 1,000 plus chapters long and still be engaged? It's because it has like fantastic storytelling, the characters, like all this stuff, man. Like the depth to it, the the nature in which One Piece analyzes and breaks down human nature, right? It showcases everything. It showcases everything in the series, right? It showcases the importance of like will, like the unconscious power of willpower and humanity, right? Like, but it also showcases the importance of maintaining your, you know, your eternal youth of yourself, like having that duty to yourself, like like fulfilling your inner child. That's because like, that is a huge part of it. That's an important part of the series, all right? Where it's like you have to balance that with the realities of the world, all right? That's kind of the whole concept of it, all right? But anyways, anyways, what I want to talk about today is a new topic that's popping up now. That's Scopper versus Silver's Rayleigh, right? So the two wings of the Pirate King, Scopper versus Rayleigh, who would win, right? And we can talk about this from two perspectives. We're gonna talk about this from like their primes, and then we're gonna talk about it from their current point, right? Because I do think that those are two different answers, but I think that the answers are pretty obvious both ways. All right. So we're gonna start off with because like before I get into the the dumb poo poo brain power scaling debates. I want to start off just like talking about like the depth in which that One Piece actually has, because I feel like people we overlook it, and when it comes to like the community that I want to build regarding One Piece and like media and discussions of creativity and stuff like that, and discussions of human nature and sociology, right? Because realistically, a lot of stuff I've heard from One Piece or I've seen in One Piece, I can actually utilize in my day to day job, which is crazy, right? Because I work in sales, right? So when it comes to sales, I legit use quotes from One Piece in the hiring process to get me hired, and I'm being so serious, right? So just to speak on the value that One Piece can bring. But anyways, let's get into the power scaling. Because I think that it's obvious. I think that it's obvious that all right, Silver's Rayleigh, Scopper Gaban, their names highly indicate their status, right? Because the top dog, the Pirate King, is Gold Roger, right? Yeah, his name is Goldie Roger, but for his moniker, the name that he's known around the world is Gold Roger. That's his moniker. Cause so like that's his nickname, Gold. And then we have Silvers, which is to indicate that he's second place under Roger, right? And then you have Scopper, which is like, yeah, he's famous, but we don't hear about it, right? We don't hear about Scopper like that. Like, yeah, he's known to the Holy Knights, to people who may have fought him or seen him fight firsthand in the past, but he's not known like that. Like, he's famous, but he's not known like that. Like, when they first heard of Silver's Relic, they're like, oh my goodness, this is the craziest thing in my life. Because like there's a high possibility that Silver's Rayleigh he was the Mihawk of his time, right? Where he was the or he's not even the Mihawk. He's legit just like the Zoro, the future and end of series Zoro, who would be even stronger than what Mihawk is, right? He was that of his era, right? He was the Zoro of his era, right? And Zoro, in some ways, is even more famous than not Luffy now, but for a good portion of the story, even Zoro was more famous than Luffy himself. All right, and so that was Silver's Rayleigh in his prime. Silver's Rayleigh in his prime was Zoro that we're gonna see at the end of the series. Right, that's the kind of guy that we're gonna start that he was. Yeah, Scopper was the left arm of the Pirate King, but Sanji's always been significantly less famous than Zoro, right? He's always been significantly less known, and that's translating over to the Scopper notoriety, right? And it's also just like, once again, the naming tier: gold, silver, copper, aka bronze, as in the third. Like, I feel like this is straightforward because hot take. This is a hot take in the One Piece community, right? I think it's pretty straightforward that it's Luffy, Zoro, Sanji, right? But Zoro and Sanji, they're always competing. They're always like right there next to each other, right? They're always like, even though Zoro's here, Sanji's gonna be like right here consistently, and that's how it is consistently throughout the series. Like, even when Zoro like takes a leap. Now, I will say, this has to not include like whatever random hockey blooms that Zoro gets when they're not consistent power ups that he can access consistently, right? Because like there are consistent times where Zoro will awaken hockey. This is a bit of a tangent, but there are consistent times where Zoro will awaken hockey. He'll be like boom, but then he can't activate that power consciously, right? So it's not like it's hard to incorporate that into like his active power system. But either way, regardless, he's stronger. Regardless, he's stronger. I don't want to get into the bottom line is that they're always meant to be like super close, right? The same dynamic is implied to be the exact same case for Scopper and Rayleigh, right? Where Rayleigh is the right arm, the first mate, vice captain of the Gold Roger Pirates, right? Scopper is a left arm. He's just right there. He stands shoulder to shoulder. Some of the quotes, some of the translations have him saying they're equals. They're shoulder to shoulder, right? They're left arm, right arm. They're like like even if the left arm is weaker, it's still like part of the same body. Does that make sense? um, so for all intents and purposes, Rayleigh and Scott Gaban in their primes, they were like right there, neck and neck, right? But Rayleigh's stronger. So in their primes, Rayleigh has the edge. I think that we don't have a ton of evidence to suggest that, but just based on portrayal, I think, and based on the way that Oda writes, we're gonna take the liberty and say that Rayleigh is stronger, right? It's just based on he's the vice captain, you know. So logically, the vice captain's gonna have a higher strength value than the third in command. I feel like that's logical for the most part. That's typically how it is throughout One Piece, right? But we're talking about the modern day, right? In the modern day era, right, where both Rayleigh and Scott are in their 70s, early mid 70s, right? Scopper has been actively training, roaming the grounds, seemingly acting as the protector of Elbaf, the Warland, the world's strongest island, supposedly, right? The island with the world's strongest army. He's working as a major protector. He's seemingly the strongest combatant on the island, aside from Loki, right? He's seemingly the strongest combatant on the main aspect of the island, because like that's the Yarul. Those are all like the main guys. Like the the giant pirates are all in the main city of Elbaf right now, so that's their main fighting force. And Scopper seems to be he would clear all of them easily. He Elbaf also has the giant animals, which Luffy himself notes to be just like the animals from Rusukana Island, where Rayleigh was training, right? So, and on Rusukana Island, 500 of those animals were stronger than pre-time skip Luffy, right? And realistically, the animals on Elbaf are going to be significantly stronger since they're quite a bit bigger, right? They're huge. They're giant animals. So they're quite a bit bigger. So that's the environment that Scopper's in daily. He's staying active. Meanwhile, Rayleigh, he hasn't touched a sword in the past 20 years, right? And during the time of not touching a sword, he's also just been binge drinking and selling himself into slavery for like 20. We don't know if it's been 20 years straight, but we can kind of, glean the idea. that Rayleigh was pretty broken up by the loss of Roger. So for the past 20-ish years, right, at least 10 years, this man hasn't touched a sword. He's been self-sabotaging his body, right, with binge drinking, not training. Yeah, the moment he does touch a sword, he's able to combat an admiral, right, which is impressive. That's not we're not to say that this isn't to say that Rayleigh is weak. A lot of people in the One Piece community, they tend to be like, oh, if there's like this one anti-feat, or if somebody's speaking like, oh, this person isn't an all-powerful god, that this person is weak. That's not how it works. He's strong. He's strong enough to fight. He's the first person. He's cannot, according to Sentomaru, a character who's physically incapable of lying. Even though he'll say otherwise, he cannot lie. Um, Sentomaru says that Rayleigh is the first person to straight up stop Kizaru in his tracks and hold him down, keep him contained, right? And Sentomaru says this twice. He says this like during while it's happening and after the time skip, right? He says that he's the first person to stop Rayleigh. And Sentomaru has known Kizaru for his entire life for the most part. So it's like this is a person who's gonna have firsthand experience to be like, oh yeah, this guy's been stopped. Rayleigh's the first one to do it. So Rayleigh is strong as hell. This doesn't say that Rayleigh is weak, right? But but Rayleigh has been inactive, right? He hasn't touched a sword in a long ass time. He's in his old age. We know that old age is a nerf in One Piece. It's a major nerf unless you have some sort of technique to offset it like the Gorosei do, right? So it's a nerf. That nerf can be mitigated by training. We see this with characters like Garp, for example, where even though he still trains, he admits that he's lost strength, right? So even with the training, Garp still loses strength. So Rayleigh, without the training, without touching the sword, he's going to lose even more strength. Without maintaining his body, only binge drinking, he's going to lose more strength from his prime, which just goes to showcase how strong he was in his prime. Where after 20 years of not training, 20 years of binge drinking, right, 20 years of destroying his body in slavery, he can go toe to toe with an admiral. Like that's this is all like Zoro hype, because this is to show that like, all right, Zoro's gonna be at this level one day, right? Where like he's gonna be like ridiculous. If Rayleigh, after doing all this damage to his body, is still admiral level, just barely under that level, then in his prime he's a monster. Scopper was at the level too. He's left arm. I don't think he was at that level where he's like where he could beat Rayleigh in a serious fight. But Scopper was able to like consistently rival Rayleigh, right? So him staying active, he's gonna make, even though he starts off at a this is Scopper, even though he starts off at a lower level, he's still able to like combat Rayleigh. But over time, right? Rayleigh's like he's not training, he's drinking, right? Like he's self-sabotaging his body. So over time, even though Rayleigh started off above Scopper, he's gonna lose less. He's gonna lose way more of that strength, right? And this strength still would allow him to combat an admiral, just as we've seen that with Scopper. His strength allows him to combat Yonkos like Luffy and Holy Knights like Somers, right? So I think that we can see, based on what we've seen so far, we can conclusively say, actually, we can't say conclusively, because we do have to give the fairness. The moment that Luffy went Gear 5, because like yes, Scopper forced Luffy to go Gear 5 casually, and keep in mind, Gear 5 Luffy is still a legitimate Yonko like caliber combatant, right? Like he split the heavens with Kaido. Yes, Kizaru can overpower Gear 4, but that just shows how strong admirals are, right? But the Luffy's base form in Elbaf is the strongest that we're seeing, right? Where he's able to casually he's able to use up to Gear 4 attacks in his base, right? So Luffy's base in Elbaf is the strongest that we've seen so far. So it's stronger than the base that we've seen uppercut the crap out of Kaido, right? So it's like it's not to say that but we haven't seen Scopper go all out against a Gear 5 Luffy, even though I do think that comfortably, like like there was no indication that Gear 5 would just like blatantly overpower Scopper, right? That was not the energy whatsoever. It was like, all right, we're gonna need like everything we've got. Zoro, back me up. Like like it was like gonna be like an intense fight, and then like it just ended, right? But in the meantime, Scopper's showcasing like high levels of hockey across the board. Showcasing high levels of hockey when it comes to observation, armament, possibly conquerors. That's debatable. Like honestly, one of the biggest flaws in One Piece is Oda's portrayal of hockey consistency, especially when like so many of the arcs are based on a certain type of hockey being utilized. He's got to work on that, and it's like the end game. Like that's like we're gonna need like a little like a little book, a little data book afterward, highlighting like which moments are utilizing hockey during which times, right? We shouldn't have to like ask like Vincent Chansar to be like, oh yeah, Luffy wasn't using Conqueror's hockey during this anime fight because he wasn't trying to beat Kizaru. Like, save it. Like, I want some more clarity, bro. But anyways, so debatably, Gabon like might have conquerors. It's not sure. He might have some new power called the power of love as an actual like hockey type ability, which I think is a very realistic possibility. Which further aligns him with the Sanji parallel, right? Where Sanji, his powers can likely the power of love. I'd be satisfied with that um, as an answer for why Sanji has those weird abilities. But I do also want to point out that both Zoro and sorry, that both Scopper and Rayleigh, they both seem to be normal human beings, right? They don't have to be, they're not implied to be any special race. Especially Gaban is like heavily implied to just be a human, based on Colin's background. I think if he's said to be human, we can check that he probably is, but Rayleigh's also human, right? Which further indicates the idea that like, all right, if these guys like don't stay active, like who's gonna okay? Because I like to phrase it like this: the difference between Scopper and Rayleigh right now is that Scopper has been an active combatant and a very high level one for 60 straight years, 60 plus straight years, right? Because like he's in his 70s, right? I didn't Google his age because it doesn't really matter. So we'll just give it the grace period and say that he's 60 plus for 60 plus years. Well, we know he's 70 plus for 60 plus years, right? He has been consistently fighting at a very high level, even after um, Roger passed away, right? After Roger passed away, Scopper had Colin, right? Because Colin's 20 years old, and Roger died 22 years ago in the timeline, right? So Colin's 20 years old, so Scopper had a kid. I think that's the biggest difference between Scopper and Rayleigh, right? Because Rayleigh was pretty broken up, right? He started drinking, threw himself into slavery, right? Scopper started a family, right? So he couldn't afford to do that, right? He couldn't afford to throw himself into self destruction, right? And and him having Colin is what is driving him to be stronger, and that's part of what the power of love is likely to be, right? Like Scopper has the big love theme. He's the missionary of love, and I think that's meant to symbolize the idea of his family, right? Because Oda's a family man, right? This is the ending of One Piece. This is kind of like the more mature themes. So like so part of the power of love is that Gaban is being pushed by the will to protect his family, and One Piece hockey is willpower, right? So his will to protect his family forces him to stay stronger, whereas Shaki herself is strong, right? She's the former empress of the Kuja pirates, right? She's strong. I think she may have been associated with the Rocks pirates as well, right? At some point, some way. Um, but Shaki can take care of herself, right? He doesn't really doesn't like stay around. He doesn't stick around Shocky all the time, right? So like, cause you know that she can handle herself. She beat their dude's ass. She beat the Straw's asses, right? So he doesn't need to protect her. He just roams Sabodia Archipelago, killing time because his dreams are kind of broken after he lost Roger, and then that's why he's so committed to Luffy, right? Because like once again, I do want to reinforce that Rayleigh isn't training, but due to how we see him train Luffy, we know that he does have a history of hard training, right? Which once again parallels Zoro, who trains constantly. If and so we know that Zoro gains a lot of his strength from the training. So if he is past his prime, he's gonna lose a lot of that strength from not training. Meanwhile, Scopper is training out in the wilderness in Elbath, right? Protecting his family, protecting Elbath. The moment that there are weird hockey signatures in Elbath, Scopper goes there to check it out. So we know that whenever there's intruders, Scopper is most likely the first one out there because he seems to be the fast one too. Because Elbath is huge, so he zips around the island fairly instantly, which again parallels Sanji. He's able to like go fairly quickly. And this isn't to say that really is slow, but this is to showcase that Scopper is active, right? That activity has helping him maintain his body in his old age more so than drinking and self sabotage. Does that make sense? All right. We're gonna wrap up the video there, right? The sun. So that's why I wear the glasses, right? Because you can see how the sun gets right in my eyes at this angle. So thank you so much for watching. I want to hear what your thoughts are, but I feel like it's obvious both ways. I feel like in their primes, Rayleigh was the superior, but Scalper was like right there, virtually equal, even though they have differences, right? But because like part of the differences that you can see is the fact that Scalper he seems very satisfied with his family, right? The worst part about it is that his son will outlive him so significantly, right? That's the worst part about it for him. But and he's outliving his wife, right? But he's very happy with his family, right? Meanwhile, and he's found a way to live on happily. You know what's crazy? So you know how in One Piece Oda has those the alternate realities where it's like it showcases the futures um, where they seem to have fulfilled their dreams versus when they have their dreams broken at some point. I feel like Oda is showcasing they're two different futures, right? And it's kind of sad to think about it like this because like really is kind of like he's Luffy's mentor, but this also kind of showcased the idea of carried dreams, right? And carried on willpower and how Luffy's carrying on uh, Rayleigh's will for him, but Rayleigh seemed to have like his dreams broken right Roger's um, after Roger's death, right? It really broke him because like, and we're seeing the two wings go in two different ways, right? And it's kind of this is also like kind of symbolizing the kind of idea that like Zoro is more associated with like the underworld, right? And Sanji is like he's a royal and royalty is associated with heaven and that kind of stuff, right? Um, so it showcases like the duality that those two have, right? That the two wings have, right? So I think that's interesting too, right? Where Scopper is really very happy. We see him in the cover arc. Like we've always seen that mysterious stranger who we now know is Scopper, right? Who traveled the world. We've seen him with Gaban, right? Or not Gaban. We've seen him. We've seen Scopper with Crocus, right? Sharing the sake, right? So like he travels the world. He's happy. He's even said that his pastime is exploring. He's happy exploring the world, right? He'll just go and see the world and just happily share drinks. He's a very happy person. Meanwhile, Rayleigh before like he's also keep in mind really this depression really is known as the Dark King, right? He's only happy because like he's seeing all the jovialness that we see from Rayleigh now, even though he's not as like upbeat as Scopper is. We see that because Rayleigh seeing Luffy, so Luffy has re-inspired the spark. He's reignited the spark. This is exactly why Luffy is like the parallel of Roger. Like it's that spark that they ignite within people, right? Because once again, the most dangerous thing about Luffy is his ability to draw allies to him, right? Even powerful allies, just like the wings. That's the whole point. He's doing it again. Like this is a storytelling. I feel like this is like because like so many people look at the power scaling aspects of One Piece without while disregarding the context of the story that is being told in, right? Like this is part of the context. Like this is part of the nature of the dynamics. That like it ties back to Luffy, it ties back to Roger, right? Their personalities, their abilities aren't just I can punch hard. Because the fact is that Luffy, if you put him up 1v1 against anybody like any other like Yonko tier, like true blue Yonko, like Mihawk, like Shanks, like Kaido, like possibly Big Mom, or like Aokiji, like Akainu, um, like Shamrock. You put Luffy up against characters like that, he's probably not beating those characters before his time runs out, realistically, right? But Luffy is never just by himself anywhere at this point. Because, like, his most powerful ability, ever, actually, because his most powerful ability, right, is to find allies. Because one of the few times that he was by himself, which is like after the Sabaody Archipelago, when he's sent to Amazon Lily, the main reason why he survives is because he wins over the audience and convinces Boa not to kill him because Boa easily could have killed him, right? So it's like Luffy is never by himself. He has that power, right? So like we gotta contextualize things properly when it comes to movies. That's the goal of the difference that I'm trying to bring with this show. Because I'm like I feel like when people talk about One Piece, they disregard so much. It's like it's a show written in a very particular way which is why it stands out so much. It's not like other shows, right? But yeah. So ultimately, uh, I believe that Rayleigh. So obviously, I think that like Roger would be like a good bit like 2 3 times stronger than uh, Rayleigh, and then Rayleigh is like he's like, and then Scopper is like 95%, 95% as strong as Rayleigh, right? Or not, let's say 90%. Let's say Scopper is like 90% as strong as Rayleigh is, right? But Rayleigh provides value in different ways, right? Where like he clearly is a bit more emotional, right? Um, so and he's more and like the power of love, that kind of stuff. So like they provide differences. Cause like I made a tweet a little while ago where I said that I believe that Zoro is consistently stronger than Sanji. Like like they're the monster trio, right? Zoro is Zoro is consistently the better fighter than Sanji, and Sanji's consistently the better tactician, right? He has better battle IQ, even and not even battle IQ, like just IQ in general. He has a different level of wherewithal, right, and awareness. That where he's able to impact, like he's able to change the battlefield in the favor of the Straw Hats so consistently, right? Um, like consistently, like the entire battlefield. He's like able to be like, all right, I can't kick everybody. Let's use our thinking parts right quick, right? Meanwhile, Zoro will be like, all right, who's the strongest guy I can find? Let's take him out, and that's how I can benefit the battle the most. And those are both like very valuable. And like Sanji, if he were to fight, yeah, he would have a bit more difficulty with a lot of the opponents. Um, but he still be able to do. He's still able to beat like a good amount of the opponents that Zoro can beat. Right. The same is true for Scopper and Rayleigh. Like I think that Rayleigh is just like he's like a next level combatant. Scopper was actually it's like it was weird that he's able to keep up, right? Like that's part of the whole dynamic of the Monster Trio is that like they, the captain goes out of their way to like headhunt like some legendary fighter, right? Which is like Zoro and Rayleigh, and then out of nowhere they run into like this third guy who's like randomly capable of consistently keeping up with the like high bar that the known superstar keeps setting, right? Like this no name is just like, oh yeah, I'm right here, I'm on your shoulder, bro, on your left, right? Like on your left, like that's the whole idea, on your left. Like it's like the idea of the freaking Falcon and Captain America. He's like, I'm right here, bro. Anyways, yeah, let's end it. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great day. Bye.